Inside this edition of Bills, this is part 2 of a 3-part series intended to get your mind right before the fast-approaching NFL draft. I want you to be surprised without getting disappointed. Bean might not do what you'd like him to for the Bills, and so hear my voice to help rejoice in the Bills. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Glad to see me? I hope you're not disappointed. If you follow me on Twitter, which heavens to Betsy, I'd be so appreciative if you did, I'm at the Bills Pod. Hell of a handle, no? And or if you listened to part 1 of this episode, then you know that we're diving headlong into a sequence of mock drafts designed to prepare you, and me, to be honest, to be surprised without being disappointed come this year's NFL draft. If you want a preamble, if you want a setup, if you want jammy irons to provide wide lens context for the impending mock draft exercise, go back and listen to part 1 of this series because the lead shan't get buried today. We've too much to do.
So much to do. And so little time.
In this second mock draft, our beloved Buffalo Bills have held on to their 30th pick, but then selected a player who most believe makes more sense at 40 than at 30, who is Landon Jackson. It's kind of funny, isn't it? Like, if the Bills traded back and took Jackson at 40, as of today, April 15th, 2025, tax day, yippee, there'd be some version of communal groaning, but not too much more than that. Yet, if we took him at 30, that's Landon Jackson. At 30, many would be calling not just for Bean's job, but for his head. When one says that out loud, it's a little preposterous, no? Well, if you agree it's preposterous, then the rest of this mock draft will be a relatively easy pill to swallow. So, similar to our first mock draft in this inverted commas, surprise, surprise, mock draft series, which we detailed in the previous edition of Bills, we saw us select Mykel Williams, the long run-stuffing star of a defensive end out of Georgia. So in this edition, we're selecting a long run-stuffing star of a defensive end. This time it's Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. Landon Jackson is kind of mechanical in his movements. Landon Jackson isn't bendy or twitchy, and Landon Jackson doesn't have any hair. And so he's okay-ish for Bills fans at the 40th pick, but not as the 30th player off the board. What he is, though, is a defensive end with a 9.88 RAS, highest of any defensive end in this draft class. And his abilities as a run-stopping edge jump off the page thanks to his position-leading 88.8 PFF run defense grade and position-leading 9.8% run-stop rate. We need to stop a run! We need team speed! They took our jobs!
They took our jobs! They took your jobs!
Brandon Bean might tell you that there are a number of ways to stop the run, and one of them is to have 2 elite run stuffers on the edges of your defensive line. And if you want speed, Brandon Bean might say, well, Landon Jackson's 4.68 40 isn't a bad start. After selecting Jackson at 30, the Bills surprise us, but don't disappoint us by taking Demetrius Knight Jr., a linebacker out of South Carolina. But, that's not a defensive tackle. No. But Demetrius Knight Jr. is one of 2 and only 2 240-pound Power 5 linebackers in this draft class with PFF pass coverage, pass rush, and run defense grades of 75 or higher. Well, 74.9 or higher, with the other being consensus top 10 pick Jihad Campbell. Bean and McDermott can indicate that they like the relatively short-armed 220-some-odd-pound Pooh Paul with all the 30 visits and Zoom calls and private workouts they like. But I, for one, will be neither surprised nor disappointed should Bean and McDermott override their pre-draft interest in Paul with the prevailing thought that they often espouse, which is that it is better to be a step ahead of a trend than a step behind a trend. The pendulum towards bigger linebackers and away from matchup pseudo-strong safety type linebackers is indeed swinging. And so a bigger body like Knight, who has the athleticism and instinctual awareness to positively impact the Bills' pass defense, represents a forward-looking archetype. Bring it on, Baltimore. If this defense includes Landon Jackson and Demetrius Knight Jr., I say, bring it on, Baltimore.
Oh, it's already been brought.
But, the pass rush. What about the pass rush? My goodness, Brandon Bean might say. How did you get in here?
Grace!
You are a needy bunch, aren't you? Well, how about we satisfy you with the long and bendy explosive pure edge rusher that is Princely Umenmielen out of Ole Miss? Oh, but a second defensive end before we take a single defensive tackle or cornerback? Sacrilege! Well, in terms of pure pass rush ability, in this class you're looking at the cream of the crop being Abdul Carter, Donovan Ezeraku, Braden Swinson, Josiah Stewart, and Princely. Abdul and Donovan are not likely attainable. Josiah is too small, and I side with Joe Marino in his assessment of Braden Swinson lacking urgency. So, where Braden and Princely share height, weight, length, and speed traits, Princely is relentless, where Braden is just a little blasé. If you are part of the rabble screaming for pass rush, how about we applaud Brandon Bean when he doesn't straddle the fence by selecting an end who can do a little of this and a little of that, but instead gets us a guy in Princely Umenmielen who is pass rush incarnate to complement Landon Jackson, who is run stuffing incarnate. And just so we're clear about a defensive end's ability to be effective in the run game, players like Rousseau and Landon Jackson and Michael Williams are really good at crashing down from the edges and plugging run lanes on the interior, just as they are effective against run plays off tackle. So, about this draft so far, huh? A long run-stuffing edge in Landon Jackson, a long pass rush artist in Princely Umenmielen, and one of a top-of-the-line, ready-to-do-it-all linebacker? Unhappy? Surprised? Still disappointed? Well, with the next pick, we've taken Dorian Strong, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. This is a press man. In your face, make a play turnover machine. How about that for a good fit on the defense that has caused the most turnovers in the league over the past 5 seasons? What Dorian Strong lacks is certifiable tackling ability. But he's been in for a 30 visit. And therefore, unless he has been brought into one Bills drive for purely smokescreen purposes, indications indicate that Bean and McDermott seem to think there's some reasonable opportunity to coach Dorian Strong into a better tackler. There's your potential CB2, folks. And I'm not making you wait long for your run plugger on the interior of the defensive line, because after Dorian Strong, we're taking Jamari Caldwell, the stout, 6'2", 330-pounder who absorbed the double teams and ran the spikes that helped Oregon trench mate Derek Harmon produce so effectively in 2024. After Caldwell, we're taking Craig Woodson, a safety out of Cal, like that to which I referred
often whose camper they were whacking.
In the first installment of this 2-part series, Bruce Nolan released a recent episode of The Bruce Exclusive, wherein he explores which safety prospects seem to have the traits and skills, because they're different characteristics, to play deep safety, which is, well, harder to play than box safety. Woodson, from what I can tell, has those traits and skills. That is, where Nick Emenwari has questions around the quickness of his trigger, how slowly the game moves for him. Woodson does not have such questions. He's like the Flash on the field. He sees something, he does something. And his 4.45 40 time supports the profile of a safety who can, indeed, see something and do something quickly. Keep the name Craig Woodson in your mind's hip pocket, right next to R.J. Mickens, who has been a favorite safety of mine for a while now. For very much of the same reason, I would be happy if Craig Woodson got drafted by the Bills. We've got another surprise for you at pick 169. That's because we're double dipping at linebacker. Linebacker? Yes, linebacker. No double dip at defensive tackle, but that's a double dip at defensive end and at linebacker. With pick 169, we're taking Cody Simon out of Ohio State. Why? For nearly every reason we took Demetrius Knight Jr., instinctual awareness and the quick trigger that accompanies it, and broad-ranging abilities in the run game, in pass defense, and as a tackler. What's the difference between Knight Jr. and Kobe Simon? Or even Cody Simon, because that's his actual name? About 1.5 inches and 15 pounds. Why double dip? Well, we all know about Matt Milano's restructured contract. We would love for Buffalo Joe Andreessen to pan out into an effective piece of the puzzle. We waved bye-bye to the talented but always injured Bale Inspector, and we know how much Bean and McDermott value special teams contributions, something that Cody Simon brings in spades. And for the final pick of this surprise mock draft, the Bills are taking my newest draft crush, Za Frazier, a playmaking machine at cornerback out of Texas San Antonio, 6'3", 186 pounds, with 32 7/8 inch arms. What Dorian Strong represents as a cornerback who can disrupt opponents' quick passing game, Za Frazier represents as the sort who can disrupt their deep passing game. While many, not all, but many, secondary prospects in this draft benefited from quarterbacks playing poorly, bad quarterback play, and somewhat might call dumb luck, Za made his plays. A toe tapper on a deep ball here, a bait and break on a comeback there, a couple fly balls to center field tracked and nabbed to put a bow on a 6-interception season in 2024. And so, if you were surprised by a draft that saw double dips at both edge and linebacker, well, you're not alone. I was surprised when making these picks. But they're all perfectly, pardon the upcoming pun, defensible. The rabble yelled for support in the run game. I gave you Landon Jackson, Demetrius Knight Jr., and Jamari Caldwell. The rabble yelled for speed. Okay, maybe we didn't get a bunch of sub 4.4 guys other than Za Frazier in the 5th round. But the rabble yelled for a pass rush. I gave you Princely Uman-Mielen. Angry? Perturbed? Disappointed? I'm not. Maybe a little surprised. But I see a draft class that helps to improve run support, helps to improve the pass rush, and helps to improve coverage at the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd levels of the defense, and a draft class that helps as much in 2025 as it projects to do so in 2026, 27, and so on. How about a musical interlude? And then a couple more mocks, huh? If that's what you're after, don't be surprised when we return with what you didn't know you needed but got anyway after this
Musical interlude.
There's a theme to these mocks, a theme that arose accidentally, which is that instead of taking either a cornerback or a defensive tackle at the top of the Bills draft, I took a defensive end. I wanted these drafts to be surprising, but I suppose I let my own bias steer the selections regardless of the goal of the exercise. I took no wide receivers with the Bills' first pick. I didn't think any linebacker was worth pick 24 or 30 or 33 or even 42. I couldn't bring myself to take a safety, even though I think there's actually a pretty damn decent chance that McDermott is yearning.
Do you ever yearn?
Yearn? Do I yearn?
I yearn.
You yearn?
Oh, yes, I yearn. Often I sit and yearn. Have you yearned?
Well, not recently. I craved.
For his new Micah Hyde and or Jordan Poyer. You can probably already assume why taking an offensive lineman, a running back, a tight end, a quarterback, LOL, with the Bills' first pick might have been beyond the pale. So anyway, I'm going to lump the next two mock drafts together into one segment because, well, I want you to get the point, to join in my preparation for being surprised without being disappointed. But I don't want to be pedantic and irritate you. I yearn for your patronage. At the Bills Pod on Twitter, hell of a handle. I'm a self-licensed football therapist here to make you feel good about your Buffalo Bills. So, the top picks in the next two drafts were both made by trading back. The first by trading back for Cleveland's 33rd pick, and the second by trading back for the Jets. Yep, the Jets. Bean said he doesn't care with whom he trades. 42nd pick. So, in draft 3 of this surprise mock draft epic, with the 33rd pick, toity, we took Texas A&M defensive end Nick Scorton. And in draft 4, with the 42nd pick, we took, there he is again, Princely Umanmielen. Scorton and Umanmielen are very different profiles, where Scorton is a bull rusher who compresses the pocket. Umanmielen possesses more of the traditional bend around the edge defensive end physical characteristics and approach. On early downs, you almost certainly prefer Scorton. But when you're ahead by 14, in the third, in Miami, and players are starting to cramp because of the scandalously unfair home field advantage, and it's time to put the game away so that Josh can put on the baseball cap, you want Umanmielen putting Tua on his hiney. That's not to say Scorton is some kind of oaf when it comes to getting after the quarterback. He had 10 sacks in his second season at Purdue before transferring to A&M, which many pundits believe executed a system along the defensive line that deflated production from its linemen in exchange for supreme gap integrity. To put a bow on Umanmielen, the goal of this exercise is to introduce you to a variety of draft scenarios that I haven't seen explored with regularity, certainly not among the common Bills fan like you and me. We didn't have a good pass rush this past year. Do you think you'll be disappointed if Bean acts quickly to improve it? I'd be a little surprised, but I can't say I'd be disappointed. In draft 3, following the Scorton selection, we add the explosive Jalen Royals.
Complimentary football.
Few defensive schemes are as good as a dynamic offense. You know what I mean? And Royals is a top-tier game breaker whose value is diminished by having done his top-tier game breaking against Temple. No offense, Deion Dawkins. Wyoming. No offense, Josh Allen. And Robert Morris University. No offense, Tim Levchik and your 2 seasons quarterbacking for the AFL's Philadelphia Soul in 1981 and 1982. In all seriousness, Royals did have 211 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns against the then 9th-ranked Boise State last season. Anyway, Scorton and Royals in one draft, and Umanmielen and Andrew Makuba in the other. At this point, mid-April, I feel like I don't need to get into too much depth about how good Makuba is as a deep safety. 26% forced incompletion percentage, 6 interceptions, 43.5% completion percentage against, and as Greg Cosell described him, a tremendous line taker to the football in the run game and an aggressive, very willing tackler. The only things that aren't ideal about Andrew Makuba are his lack of Eminwari level speed, his lack of Eminwari length arms, and the absence of Eminwari measured weight. But he's probably, at this point in his playing career, a more complete, better football player than Eminwari. There. I couldn't help myself. Some depth as to what makes Makuba such an attractive prospect as the Bills' deep safety. Back to draft 3. Following the Jalen Royal selection, we're picking Chris Pooh Paul Jr., linebacker out of Ole Miss, while in draft 4, we've selected, you ready for your surprise?
What's in the box?
Tate Ratledge, 2-time first-team All-CC guard. Out of Georgia. Osiris Torrance is extension eligible after this season, and the price for guards has soared in the past season or two. If Bean is concerned he might get priced out of the Osiris Torrance sweepstakes, and he agrees with the majority that the 2025 offensive lineman class is a weak one, we shouldn't gasp when he moves early to fortify the ranks that help keep our star quarterback clean and having the time to move on from his first read to his second and third reads, which he did more frequently than any other quarterback this past season. For all the talk from the milieu that badly wants a wide receiver out of this draft, it concerns me how few of them have mentioned offensive linemen in their list of demands. An average quarterback with so-so wide receivers can have a hell of a career if he has time in the pocket. How about Josh Allen with good receivers and a succession of excellent offensive lines? Don't say I didn't warn ya. Tate Ratledge, guard, Georgia, possible Buffalo Bill. Back to draft 3. We've thus far taken Scorton, Royals, and Pooh Paul, and now we're adding Jacob Parrish, who is among Kyle Crabb's favorite corners in this corner-rich draft. See? When a draft is deep at a position, a GM might actually be best served staying patient, selecting the cream of the crop at other positions, and winding up with a dynamic prospect at a position of need on day 3, just like this with Jacob Parrish. Now, truth be told about Parrish, he might go in round 2. And if we took him in round 2, I will neither be surprised nor disappointed, nor angry in the slightest. Parrish is kind of a totally locked down corner. He's just a little on the small side for the top 20. Add, no joke, 1 inch to his height to make him 5'11", and add 1.25 inches to his arms to make them 32 inches, and you could have a prospect spoken about in the same sentence as Jedi Barron and Will Johnson. His 5'10", 191-pound frame weren't enough, though, to keep him from a perfect 10 RAS. And Jacob Parrish is what Greg Cosell calls just a good football player, Brownie. Similar to the Parrish pick in our other mock draft 4, we're taking Darian Strong. We're trying to surprise you here on Bills, not give you a conniption. We know we need a CB2, and we are, well, I am, here to help you understand that the Bills may be looking for theirs later than you might be hoping or expecting. Back to draft 3. We're double dipping at cornerback by selecting Noel Williams from Cal. The thinking behind this pick is that Noel Williams was available at 115, and I think he's BPA at that spot. It's never bad to have depth, and with the selection of Parrish in mind, if Taron Johnson were to miss a series, or gosh forbid, a game or more, Parrish is built both physically, a little short, remember? And stylistically, as a sure tackling run defender to fill in for him. And so having Noel Williams waiting in the wings to slot in as the CB2 is an amazing luxury. And testament to the excellent roster building already undertaken to afford us such a luxury.
It's good to be the king.
I need a brief musical interlude. We've got another surprise awaiting us over in Draft 4 because we've taken Harold Fannin Jr., tight end out of Bowling Green. Way back in October of 2024, the Draft Network's Keith Sanchez mocked Fannin Jr. going 28th overall to the Lions. Granted, that mock draft was so long ago that the Bills were projected to have the 21st pick, so wave in the jumbo-sized cement mixer full of salt because we're going to need as many grains of it as we can get. But suffice it to say that the 6'3", 230-pound Bowling Green tight end who can put up 137 yards receiving and a touchdown in week 2 against Penn State, and then put up 145 yards and a touchdown, including a 65-yarder against Texas A&M the next week, has a ceiling high enough worth considering, even if you're the Bills, who have Dalton Kincaid on a rookie contract for at least 2 more years, and Dawson Knox under contract also for 2 more years. Meanwhile, over in Draft 3, we're taking our first defensive tackle, and it's little spoken about Cam Horsley out of Boston College, who is one of my personal faves. Horsley recorded 31 stops in 2024, just 1 fewer than Walter Nolan's 32, despite logging 122 fewer snaps. Horsley is not a game wrecker, but his 8.54 RAS serves to support a profile of a defensive tackle who has the physical tools to hold his own against NFL talent, while his production and high PFF grading serves to support a profile of a defensive tackle who has the high floor to complement the picks made above him, and of course, relied upon to free up Ed Oliver to do his thing as a penetrator. The final selection in Draft 3 is another draft crush of mine, the supremely athletic Caleb Ransaw out of Tulane. Dude plays with an edge. Combine his attitude with a 9.96 RAS, a RAS that includes a 4.33 40 time and 40-inch vertical, and then factor in that he'll be part of a rookie class that includes Jacob Parrish and Noel Williams, and you'll have provided a complete reset and refresh to a secondary that has been fine but not outstanding ever since Hyde and Poyer and Trey White started to get hurt and old. And back over to Draft 4. Once more, we wrap it all up by selecting Trevor Etienne out of Georgia, J.J. Pegues out of Ole Miss, and Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee. Allow me to explain why. We all know about the James Cook situation, but none of us knows about the James Cook situation. Catch my drift? This running back class is said to be a very good one, a very deep one. Etienne doesn't have the long speed that Cook has, but anybody my age and older will almost certainly see something of the great Emmitt Smith in the way Etienne runs. Not a millimeter of wasted motion, not a moment lost to indecisiveness. Kid knows how to play running back, and knows how to do so on first, second, and third down. Ty Johnson is signed through this season and the one after. Ray Davis is on a rookie deal through this season and the one after. And of course, the big matzo ball out there is Mr. James Cook. If Etienne impresses in camp, that could not only make Cook's potential pre-2026 departure palatable, but it could also give the Bills even more leverage than they already have to make a deal. Plus, we know McDermott loves competition. J.J. Pegues is another fave of mine, and if the tush push had gotten banned, I am certain he would have went firing up draft boards. Pegues lined up all over the defensive front for Ole Miss, but predominantly lined up on the interior alongside Walter Nolan. And Nolan's profile is so very similar to Ed Oliver's that it's no leap of faith to expect that Pegues' learning curve would be quite shallow when teamed up with Oliver. What's more, Pegues was recruited as a tight end and then played on both sides of the ball as a defensive tackle and as fullback, and was downright dominant in short yardage situations. His playing weight is around 325. He's 6'2", and possesses dancer-quick feet. If McDermott is serious about player safety on the tush push, he'll roll Pegues out there on 4th and short to keep Josh clean. And that brings us to the final pick of this surprise mock draft series, and that is Dante Thornton Jr., the 6'5", 220-pound absolute burner of a 4'3" flat man out of Tennessee. This man has one job, and it is an important job, and it is a job for which he seems to have been specifically built by the gods on Football Olympus. Take the roof off the defense. Send Thornton on post routes, and he is so fast in a really elegant way that double high safeties are going to be forced to retreat and retreat hard. Players with great route running acumen like Joshua Palmer and like Khalil Shakir will feast with so much room to operate in the intermediate. Want to unlock Keon's full potential? Want to see Kincaid blossom up the seam like he's designed to do? Put Dante Thornton Jr. in the wide receiver room. Everyone will be happy, even the rabble. Your denouement awaits to put a bow on this series after this musical interlude. I am a self-licensed football therapist. I don't know if the Bills would be best served taking Mykel Williams at 30, Princely Umanmielen at 42, double-dipping at defensive tackle with the first 2 picks, double-dipping at cornerback at 52 and 62. I know 2 things, though. I know that my armchair desires and amateur assessments are different than Brandon Beane's desires and professional assessments. And I know that whoever we select in this draft and whoever any other team selects in this draft trails far behind what is the most significant storyline of the approaching 2025-26 season for our Buffalo Bills. And that storyline is whether or not Matt Milano can stay healthy. Surprise! The Matt Milano tale has been wandering in the background of 1,000 varying Buffalo Bills-centric offseason narratives, and I'm bringing it to the foreground. 100% healthy Matt Milano is not a quality starter. 100% healthy Matt Milano is not a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker. 100% healthy Matt Milano is a game-wrecking all-pro in coverage and in the run game. Milano turns 31 in July and has logged 394 snaps in the past 2 years. That's not very many. And while we may never know exactly what the heck happened to his leg that fateful day on that shitty London turf in Tottenham, Matt Milano didn't blow out his ACL. Matt Milano didn't rupture an Achilles. Matt Milano comes back 100%. We have among the best linebacker cores in the league, with Dorian Williams and, of course, Buffalo Andreessen and Eddie Ulofoshio as depth pieces. As Joe Marino likes to say, come on now. I actually know 3 things, it turns out, because I know that the Bills aren't going to get worse because of this draft. And while we can fret over which prospects wind up in Philadelphia, in Washington, in Detroit, or Kansas City, we will be coming out of this draft with a roster that went 13-4 last year and was a play away from the Super Bowl and added a really good wide receiver in Josh Palmer and potentially good defensive players in Michael Hoyt and Derek Forrest. Oh, and Joey Bosa. No biggie, just Joey Bosa. Upgrade, 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 upgrade. Potentially massive upgrade. That's on top of a Bills team that went 13-4 and was a play away from the Super Bowl. The likelihood that any rookie on our team or any rookie on Philadelphia, Washington, Detroit, or Kansas City tips the canoe all the way over is super, super slim. But what could make a major difference? Well, that would be if Matt Milano is 100% Mint Milano. I'm a self-licensed football therapist, Bills Mafia. I want you to feel good heading into this draft, and I want to prepare to feel good alongside you throughout days 1, 2, and 3 of this draft, and I want to help you feel good once this draft is over. If Matt Milano is 100% Mint Milano, the Bills could draft Gray Zabel or Tyler Booker, so that we're chock full of rookie contracts when payday comes up for Osiris Torrance. And guess what, Bills Mafia? We're still a top competing team in the NFL. If Bean likes Harold Fannin Jr. at 62 instead of your favorite defensive tackle, or if Bean thinks Noel Williams is that dude, and so can wait until day 3 to get the first cornerback?
Don't have a cow, Mother.
Remember what Jeremy Irons said. A cold, damp April day means you get the park to yourself. The silver-lined cloud. The 13-4 Bills with 100% healthy Matt Milano get to add a bunch of fresh, young, talented players to the roster. Brandon Beane has draft targets for next year. Brandon Beane knows what's good with the James Cook situation, and Brandon Beane knows every player that's set to hit the market on June 2nd and how much they'll cost. His board is different from mine, and mine is different from yours, and we're heading into 2025 rooting for a team that was 13-4 and a play away from the Super Bowl, a team which just might have a healthy, rested, all-pro linebacker joining, really for the first time, recently extended, very excellent, Terrell Bernard at the second level of the defense. I can't wait to be surprised. After writing these episodes, I'll tell you, I don't know how I could be disappointed. I'm a power hitter sitting on the curveball. I'm a self-licensed football therapist, and I feel good, real good, about how our Buffalo Bills, and I hope I helped you feel good, real good, about our Buffalo Bills. Now, there is a part 3 forthcoming, one which won't include any mock drafting, but will involve an approach I like to call the I don't know approach. You'll see. It's all very helpful. I'm a self-licensed football therapist. And so, if you see me on the street wearing a Bills hat, because I'm always wearing a Bills hat, put a fist in the air and say, "Go Bills." And I will raise my fist in the air and I will say, "Go Bills, go Bills, go Bills, Bills, Bills."